probably my most pivotal memory was when I was 12. I grew up in a house where we had plenty of money. My father was an attorney, and my parents were, they had a happy marriage. And then my father left and found another woman and did the midlife crisis thing when I was 12. And suddenly we didn't have much money. So he said he couldn't fully pay child support. And so my mom and I were really struggling. She had to go back to college. We had to sell our family home. We had to move across to a new state. And so that was pretty traumatic for me. And because my father wasn't in the picture, my mother was needing some emotional support. And so I knew a lot of her money struggles. And so my experience at that age was money can be there, and then overnight it can disappear. And from that, I really learned how to be a good saver. So it had a lot of blessings, but it also created some trauma too. I mean, I've since healed my relationship with my father. He's a wonderful man. He just went through, had a heart issue and went through some issues around that time. But it was a blessing in some ways because I learned how to be a good saver. I learned how to buy, I had to buy my first car. I had to pay my way through college, pay my rent. There was quite a long period of time there where he wasn't providing financially. So it was a great experience for me. And it also caused me to be an excessive saver. So it also didn't serve me in some ways too, right? Where I've held on to that scarcity mindset for a long time, and I'm still working on clearing it and developing a more healthy relationship to money. But it did help me to save. And, I got out of undergrad debt free, paying for it myself. It took me 5 years. And I paid for, grad school too. I did have some debt from grad school, but I paid it off pretty quickly. So it served me in many, many ways to have a little bit of learn how to save from an early age and have a little bit of a scarcity mindset. But now I'm trying to develop a healthier relationship with money.
Yeah, I can certainly resonate with the scarcity mindset and understanding how that feels. And it is a blessing and a curse. It's a great superpower to get you started. And at a certain point in your journey, it's it's always tough, but it's generally kind of necessary to figure out how to overcome that. But I'm kind of curious, like going through all that when you're 12, getting a different frame, mindset around money. What did that do for you thinking about like what you want to do with the rest of your life? Like, I know obviously you're only 12. And so maybe right at that moment, you're not starting to have those thoughts, but like, how does that start to influence the way you wanted to build your life? Like what you thought you were going to be, the lifestyle you thought you wanted to live?
Great question. I think for me, I always wanted financial security. And so not at 12, but later, I knew I loved teaching. And when I started teaching, and that was the direction I wanted to go. And I knew that teachers don't make much money in the US. So I think that early childhood experience led me to think, I can't, I do love teaching, but I don't want to teach in the US because it's hard going. People really struggle and work summer jobs and, side hustles to actually just pay their bills. And so I really did target, how can I teach, but in a sustainable way where I can still have a great savings rate? And really that was Asia. Even international schools in other parts of the world don't have the same savings rate as the really good international schools in Asia. And so that was part of what influenced me in my career choice. Again, I studied what I loved. And so I didn't totally go down like, I want to find the job that pays me the most money. I did study what I love, but then I targeted, where do I want to go where I can still save with that career that I love? I think subconsciously, it did cause me to have a lack of trust in relationships and men for many years. And so I was single for a long time. And I had to kind of heal that relationship to know that, what happened to me as a child would not happen to me as an adult necessarily. I wasn't going to be walked, I had the experience of feeling like I was abandoned or walked out on, but, to develop a new relationship with men and trust that I could be in a happy relationship. So yeah, there was some conscious and also subconscious Did you word it as choices, Justin, or how did you word it? How did it affect my life? I can't remember exactly the way you worded it.
Yeah, like just I was thinking about like how did that kind of affect the outlook that you had, and and maybe some of the choices that you would make, and some of the expectations you were setting, and kind of the what you're wanting to achieve. Like, for some people it does do that, where you want to like make sure I will never be in a bad financial standpoint again, and it does take them down a path of like absolute money over everything. Some people, that situation could obviously make them maybe appreciate how quickly life can change and decide that they want to go down a path that it's really like more fulfilling and not worried so much about money. People can kind of take that same situation, go two different ways with it. And I was just kind of curious which way that led you.
Yeah, it definitely led me to be a very good saver. So I was, I remember debating like, oh, I'd really, going to the grocery store, choosing all the cheapest things, thinking about, I lived in the cheapest apartments in university. I worked 2 jobs. I took 5 years. I worked the summers full time. So in high school too, I was working 2 jobs. So I was a very motivated saver. And I went to a state school, which was also less expensive. So I was always trying to figure out how can I make things more affordable. And when I did my grad degree, I lived in the student co-op. I was an RA in college. So all of those decisions were really, how can I save the most money and do this in the most affordable way? And then, once I got out of school, like how can I choose the job that will allow me to save the most money as well? So I think savings was definitely on my mind, and definitely this fear of it could disappear at any moment. So how can I make sure I'm safe? It's really about safety for me.
And so just to put some numbers around these decisions, so you had the choice of either staying domestic and teaching in the U.S. And as you just mentioned, teachers don't get paid a lot in the U.S. It's really hard for a lot of teachers to have a really healthy savings rate. You choose to do this international teaching thing. What do the numbers look like from a revenue and an expenses standpoint from that decision?
Sure. Well, I first went abroad in 2001, right after I finished my bachelor's degree, and I went abroad to Japan, and I wasn't working in an international school at that point. I was teaching for the Japanese government in Japanese high schools, which was so much fun, super fun. But it wasn't the same savings rate. They did pay for they did fly me over, they paid for my housing and all of that. And this was, again, 2001, so it's a long time ago, but I was saving only about $5,000 a year there. So not great money, but it did allow me to kind of take a sabbatical year before I did my grad degree and travel around mostly India and Southeast Asia. And I was traveling very budget, staying for 90 rupees a night, which you can't find that now in India, even though India is cheap. I was a budget traveler. And then I went back to get my grad degree, and it allowed me to pay for a good chunk of my grad degree, just doing that, because I didn't really know about international schools initially. I thought, maybe I'll teach ESL abroad for a little bit. And then with my grad degree, I was able to get into the international school. So I went to Singapore in 2007, and I was saving about $35,000 a year there. I was there for 6 years till 2013. And then I went to an international school in New Delhi, India, and I was saving about $60,000 a year there. And I was there for 4 years until 2017. And then
pause you, what are the revenue numbers there? So you're saving like 5,000, then 35,000, then 60,000. Is that like out of 200,000 or like out of 80,000, or what is the revenue number?
Good. Okay. I was saving 90% of my salary.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was because the schools give you so many benefits. In my school that I was at in India, I had a 4-bedroom, 4-bath, beautiful place with marble floors, beautiful. And, they actually paid me $10,000 extra to live with someone, because they're going to provide housing anyway. But if instead of providing 2 separate houses, they pay each of us $10,000 to live together. So I took that on, again, with that savings rate, like, how can I save more money? But, they would pay me transportation costs, to get there. Of course, I could fly me home every year, but then also daily transportation costs just to get to school. And, it was very affordable to live in India. I could have my roommate and we could have someone who came in and cooked and cleaned for us, did all the shopping. So people say, you lived in New Delhi for 4 years. How did you survive? And it was actually super easy because I have, I had so much help, and the campus was beautiful. And so it was, because they pay the transportation, they pay the housing, so much is covered. I'm spending money on groceries and travel, and mostly I'm kind of savings focused, and I don't travel expensive luxury. So, but I definitely saved more than my coworkers, I would say, because I've got that savings mentality.
I'm
And
curious
then
about.
I guess I was going to finish with just saying that I took 2 years sabbatical, and then I went to Bangkok, and I saved 90,000 a year there, 90% of my income there. So it kept going up as I progressed in my career.
And kind of like stepping our way into it, like we've covered a big swath of time, but like kind of taking it, there towards the beginning. You graduate college, you go to Japan, 2001, right? 2001.
Yep,
So
that's
right. Almost 22 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Facebook groups and the things like that probably didn't exist in 2001. So I'm trying to imagine, like, I'm fresh out of college. How in the world do I land a job working for the Japanese government, and even understanding like what things I need to do to land that job in a world
Mm-hmm.
where, yes, like 2001 people had internet and that sort of thing, but it's very, very different than it is now. Like, we have so much more information at our fingertips now than it was in 2001.
Yeah, I mean, my sister had taught abroad in Taiwan, ESL, and I don't think I would have even thought of it if it hadn't been for her. I saw she's 9 years older than me, and she was in college when my father left and all of that. So it's just really my mom and I at that time. But I used to get letters back from her when I was a young girl of her travels, and it inspired me. I grew up in rural Texas where no one traveled really. We might go down to Dallas, 9 hours away, but no further than that, not really. So for me, it was planted as a child, that dream in my head to go abroad. And I found out about the JET program, which is an amazing program. It's the largest teach abroad program for ESL in the world. They have 7,000, or they used to have about 7,000 teachers a year from all English speaking countries. So I had friends from Australia, New Zealand, and, Jamaica and Singapore, and, all of these, the UK, of course, all of these countries from the first time. And we had a blast. It was the best decision I ever made. So I think because of my sister, it planted that seed in my head. And, there wasn't Facebook groups, but I went on the internet and I found out about the JET program. And I had an offer in Taiwan, but I'm glad, I love Taiwan too, but I just had such an amazing experience in Japan with the friends that I met that I'm really glad I went to Japan. And I love that country too. So it opened my whole world. And I really thought I would be abroad for a year or two because I'm so close to my family. My aunt said, you'll just be there 1 year. And I stayed 4. And then I found about international teaching. I'm like, I could do this forever. So this is my life. My life is really, I really envision that I'll always live abroad. Although I love the US, but.
Well, I just love the example that you're setting for young people out there. I think we do have a lot of younger listeners that listen to the show and that follow me and Justin on social media. Like, if you could do this, whether it's ESL or whether it's just like living somewhere else that's cheaper for like 3-5 years, and you can save, $30,000, $50,000, $90,000 a year, you can kind of do like the whole Coast Fi thing where you just like save up this huge nest egg in your early 20s, do the travel stuff, work, make US rates, and then just invest the difference. So I'm curious, in your own personal situation, Amy, were you like, I know you mentioned you were saving like the 5,000, then the 35, then the 70, then the 90. Were you investing all this stuff at that time? Did you know about index funds? Did you know what investing was, or was this just sitting in a bank account somewhere?
Great question. Yeah, because my mom had such a feeling of panic around money once my father left, she really went down the rabbit hole of how do I educate myself? And, I kind of relied on my husband to be the financial head of the household. And I didn't really know anything about money, was her perspective. And suddenly she felt like I need to learn. And so I saw her as a young girl, or in my teens, ingesting all these financial books. And I remember I read a long time ago, Girls Just Want to Have Funds was the name of the book, Funds with a D. And I read that book. And so I learned about a Roth IRA, and I invested in those, when I was living in Japan. And so, yeah, that was seeing my mom go through that educational piece really taught me that I need to educate myself. And, I was doing target date funds back then. I didn't really know what to do, but I'll just do an index fund, like a target date fund. And that's what I was doing at the time. And then there were some years, when I was in grad school when I wasn't investing. But then once I got the job again, I was focused on how can I save and invest it. But I was always doing low cost index funds. I didn't ever get into property, and I wish I would have, but I didn't really know about how to do that from abroad, and didn't really know the market in the U.S. so much. And it's also complicated to invest abroad. At that time, I didn't have the knowledge to do that.
As you're getting more into this, and you're talking about having friends from all these different countries around the world, and you're getting more and more into personal finance, like educating yourself, trying to save. Did you find, I don't even know if that's something that would have come up, but like, were you having conversations with people from other countries? Did you notice like a difference in maybe the culture around like saving or saving for retirement versus what you were used to seeing in the States?
Great question. I don't know that I discussed it that much with people. My close friends I did, and I know some of my close friends I helped along the way. Like one of my great friends that you met, Cody. I'm sorry, Justin. You met Justin at Camp Fi, Southwest Chelsea. I got her to invest. I met her in Japan, and I got her to invest in the Roth IRA and taught her about that. So some of my close friends I did talk to about investing, but other people from other countries, I don't know that we talked about it that much. I mean, to be honest, I think I was a secret saver and a little embarrassed that, I am frugal, and I think I had a little shame around that. So I kind of hid it a little bit, right? Like, I don't want people to think I'm cheap, right? So like, how can I, be strategic and spend money in smart ways? And I had a lot of great, amazing adventures. I did notice, I guess I would say, when I lived in Singapore, one thing that kind of shocked me was, that we make great money there, but how quickly actually a lot of other teachers didn't really save, because it was all about living the high life, going out to the champagne brunches, Singapore is a very wealthy country. It's very much about, like, some people like the name brand bags, the name brand shoes. And so I was kind of like a little surprised, like coming from graduate school in Oregon, where everybody's a little bit more cost conscious, like to Singapore, where it's like, how can we, live this like high life? So there were sometimes people would invite me to their champagne brunch, and I was too frugal to think, I don't want to spend $120 on one meal. So I did notice that. And those were people from different, obviously, I worked with a lot of people from other English speaking countries in Singapore.
So to kind of piggyback off Justin's question, it is kind of hard to do this whole FIRE thing without a community, in my opinion anyway. Like, not many people are just saving $60,000 just cuz. Most people have at least got introduced to the idea of like early retirement or financial independence or one of these things. How long were you kind of operating in a silo where you were just holding on to those frugal roots, saving as much as you possibly can before you were introduced to something like the financial independence movement? Or maybe it was Dave Ramsey, or I'm not sure exactly what your foray was into like a personal finance community.
A long time. I did not, and it felt really lonely. And that's why, I'm so excited to create an event in my part of the world, because there's nothing going on over here as far as that goes. I mean, there's small little meetups, people get together, have a beer, but as far as a multi-day conference, there's nothing in Australia and Asia. So, a long time. So I didn't discover the FIRE movement until 2019. And it was after taking 2 years off and living this dream life in Bali, and, getting scared again. Like, I've spent all this money in 2 years. I haven't had any money going in. I need to go back to work, and going back to work in Bangkok, and really being unhappy, even though I loved teaching in the past. Like, I had seen what my dream life looked like. And that's when I really went, down the internet rabbit hole, searching for like, how can I create my dream life in Bali, live where I want to live, because there's not a good international school that pays well in Bali. And I don't really want to be tied to the school schedule anymore. And I had trouble balancing in that career. So like, how can I have more time freedom? So, I felt kind of alone on the journey for a long time. And I was just doing my thing and calculating every month my net worth and a little bit neurotic about it, like not in a healthy way. I was on my spreadsheet, I was tracking everything, but it wasn't always a good thing either. So, now I'm trying to find out, like, how can I find balance between being financially responsible and also, allowing myself to spend on things that bring me joy and not having that fear-based story anymore. But when I found fire, it was a life raft. It was like, thank goodness, Sorry, go ahead, Justin.
Oh no, it is. It's a super tough balance. I think a lot of people in this community struggle with. I mean, like it's a superpower when you're needing to accumulate, but then when it's time to flip that switch to start enjoying, and maybe flipping a switch is probably the wrong way of thinking about it. Like being able to do it along the way is obviously I think what everybody strives to be, but a lot of people end up kind of doing the just pedal to the metal on the saving, and then it's all of a sudden you're expecting you're just going to be able to flip some switch and start enjoying it. And most people's brains just don't work that way. Like once you've conditioned yourself for 10, 20 years to live a certain way and to think a certain way, it's kind of hard to flip that switch and just to start enjoying it. Like it feels like it's not fun when you're spending money, even if it's on something fun, because all you're thinking about is your balance dropping. You're not thinking about the fun thing that you're getting to do. So I definitely really empathize with what you're saying there. But as somebody who has lived across all these different countries, and I think there are some of those countries are ones that are like stereotypically a country people think about for like a geo-arbitrage, like somewhere they could go and really make their dollar go a long way. Are there any like little sample stories or things you'd like to share with the listeners about like just how far their money could go in one of these countries, and like maybe a life that they're living that doesn't seem as exciting in, a fringe metropolitan area in the Midwest, where they could take that same salary that they're spending in Omaha and go to Bali, and what that lifestyle difference could look like?
Yes, the lifestyle here, and I've traveled a lot, and I love, I tried geo arbitrage in a lot of different places, and also traveled in South America, Central America, and Europe a bit, but I feel like the lifestyle I can get in Asia is phenomenal. And so I absolutely love, in Bali in particular, and Thailand as well. I just got back from Thailand yesterday. But the lifestyle is outstanding. So, I feel like it all depends on, what you prioritize. Obviously, you can come here and you can spend $3,000 a month on a huge plush, massive villa that's multiple rooms. And I spend, I've got a nice villa, 1 bedroom, 1 bath with a shared pool, but there's only 6 people that share the pool, and it's $400 a month, and then my partner and I split that. So, it's $200 a month for my portion. But it's got a bathtub, it's very nice, it's plenty for us. And, we eat out in restaurants every day. We don't cook at all. We've got a kitchen here as well, but there's just such good, affordable food here. I'm going to yoga every day. I mean, so I'm spending about $50 a day, and that is living my very, very best life. Going to yoga, eating out all the time, getting massages twice a week, at least 3 hours a week. but it's affordable. Like it's so affordable. So Bali has so much to offer. And then I'm doing classes all the time, not only yoga, but I just love the personal and professional growth opportunities there are in Bali. And that's why this place is really dear to my heart. Because I'm doing there's a lot of digital nomads and entrepreneurs here. So there is so much I can learn, both professionally and personally, more of an inner meditative journey. And then also an external journey, like how to grow a business or that kind of thing. So there's a lot of, in addition to my cost, that's part of it is I'm spending money on personal and professional growth. But I'm doing everything I want for that $50 a day, around $2,000 a month price range.
Wow. So even at $50 a day, I'm just curious, how are you currently funding this? Are you teaching ESL for a couple months, and then you go back to somewhere like Bali? I know you mentioned they didn't have as high-paying programs. Are you living off of your investments from those index funds that you were talking about earlier? What is funding this $2,000 per month luxurious lifestyle?
Great question. Well, right now I am partly living off my cash cushion because the market's down. So I don't want to draw on my investments at all. And I built enough of a cash cushion where I felt like when the market drops, I can live off that for several years. And I'm also supplementing my income by doing some online teaching. So I this is the power of the FI community, because I met I was in the US, my dad had a stroke. So I left Bangkok, went to the US to care for my dad. And I was in the US for almost a year, the longest I'd been in the US for a long time. And I went to 6 fire events in the US in that one year. And I met Justin, which was awesome. And I met a lot of other amazing people. But at one of the Camp Fi's, my first one in California, I met a guy who hired me to coach kids with ADHD online. So I'm doing that right now. I taught a Chinese school during the Christmas break, some Chinese kids who just want extra supplementary lessons when they're having a break. So I did a geography lesson from them. One of my friends put that together. So, I'm finding ways to supplement my income. I feel like there are so many opportunities here because you're meeting so many other entrepreneurs. I've also started a service learning curriculum with another woman. So we built an online program that we sell to international schools to teach students how to do service well, because there's curriculums for, all the main subject areas, but not for service. And then kids choose a project that they don't really feel passionate about. They have to just tick a box to graduate, to do this volunteer hours. But this is a really meaningful project that teaches them all the research about, how to really get in touch with what they're passionate about and choose a project they really love and have success connecting with the community. So it's truly a reciprocal exchange. So that's something I feel really passionate about too. So, and I wouldn't have met her if I hadn't been in Bali, and just meeting the caliber of people that I meet here. And I feel like that doesn't always happen in other places I travel. Sometimes I meet, backpackers who are young, and there's nothing wrong with that. I was that person, but I love meeting mentors here. I can meet people that really inspire me and that, I could grow a business with.
Oh, sorry, Justin. It looked like you were asking a question.
Yeah. So when you're living in like a different country like this, I think about myself, I've not lived international the way you have, but I've lived in other parts of the country. And especially as an adult who is working fully remote, and then an adult who's working fully remote who doesn't have kids, it's like it's increasingly hard to find a community and to find friends. Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of curious how you've built that, and if you've been able to build that in Bali, like what that looks like to create a network of close friends, real world friends, there in a country like that. Like, is it just a melting pot of people? Like, how did you find them, if you have been able to build that group?
Yes. It's been honestly easy in Bali, and it isn't always the case. And so I think it's important for listeners to think about, what do I want? Because some people really want to go somewhere very remote where they're only with locals, and that's an amazing experience. And I've done a lot of travel like that, where I've gone to East Timor and there's not many other foreigners there. But if I'm there for a year or two, there's some cultural connection that I'm missing, and some depth of conversations that I'm not able to have, even though I love connecting with locals as well. And I've loved the Balinese people are beautiful people. So I love the local connection here as well. And I've got Balinese friends. But I do love in Bali, I found it very easy to make friends because there are so many entrepreneurs, digital nomads here, and they don't always do the things that the tourists do. And they're going to different personal growth opportunities. And in those classes, mostly I meet these people, and they're here long term. So I was living here from 2017 to 19, and I left and I came back again. And a lot of those people are still here, and they've been here for a long time. And they're all age ranges, which is exciting too. I've got friends who are much younger than me and friends who are older than me too, but they're doing really innovative things in the world. So I felt like it's been very easy here. And as far as other places I've gone, mostly I've had a job. So I moved to Singapore, Japan, or India with a job, and then that made it much easier. Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
I would say it gets better with time. The longer you're here, the more you know. So it's, it can feel a little clunky in the beginning, but if you put yourself out there, you'll meet people.
Definitely makes sense. So I'm guessing there are a lot of people, a pretty decent subset, that do move to a place for a job, for example. But there's a lot of people who just work fully remote. They just have to get their stuff done. And they're hearing this episode and they're like, I want to move somewhere that's cool, that's a low cost of living area, but I also want this like sense of community. I want people that are like me. Are there any good communities, resources to find those places so you don't just end up, I don't even know the place, where in the world the place was that you just mentioned where there wasn't a lot of foreigners, but I'm sure there's a lot of places that have super low cost of living, but you're going to find yourself with not many other English speakers, maybe not many other people who share similar interests, values as you. Are there any good places to kind of check that box and make sure this place is somewhere I actually want to live before committing to that place?
Yes. I think it's important for listeners to think about what they want in a community. So there are certain, even within Bali, right? There are certain places that you can go where you're going to find, the people who are coming over and they're just having a huge party holiday and they want to go out and party every night and drink and stay out. And that's their ideal holiday. And if that's what you're wanting, then, I'd suggest that you go down to Kuta, for example, in Bali, right? And I'm interested more in, and I used to do some of that stuff, but I'm kind of not, I like to go to bed early now. So it's not my life anymore. So, I'm interested in personal and professional growth. And so I live in Ubud in Bali, and that's really where the people that I'm interested in are living, and that's where the community is formed around that. So if listeners think about, I really want to do surfing and I really want to get into a surfing community, then I think if they research around the world, digital nomad surfing, and then they can find those communities that will have the right mix of people that are similar to them, that will really nourish them. I think that that's the answer. I mean, there are places that I know, having lived abroad, that are similar to where I'm living now, that I feel would be great places for me to consider as a home. And I've tried some of those places out. I went down to Mexico and tried it out for 3 months, a similar kind of community to Bali. And I found that my money didn't go as far there. But I enjoyed it. But I still kind of preferred Bali. And I've also tried out a community in Thailand that I love, that also has a lot of personal, professional growth opportunities there. So I would say, based on their interests, to kind of research what kind of community they want to live in, who lives there, and is that going to really nourish them? Is that going to be what they're looking for?
And now that you have started to like kind of build your community there, and obviously you alluded to the retreat, the conference type thing that you started putting together. Was it something that you started putting together because you realized that the community you started building in Bali had like this kind of thirst for material like that? Or is it something where you imagine you're bringing mostly people from other parts of the country because you want them to experience Bali, or not other parts of the country, but other parts of the world, like out of country, because you want them to experience Bali, and it's kind of a good combo because Bali's low cost of living? Like, what was going through your mind to help decide, this is the location where I want to do like a financial kind of retreat conference?
I was in Bangkok and ingesting all of this when I discovered this financial independence community, ingesting all of this material, doing the deep dive, and really thinking, this is what I'm lacking. It was during COVID, so I was really feeling like this need for community at that time, and realizing there's not much over here. So it's really the original intention was for the Asia Pacific region. So for Australians, for, people there's a lot of expats working in Shanghai and Hong Kong and Singapore. And I would say that the FIRE concept hasn't caught on as much with Asians because there's a little bit of a cultural barrier to, it's just hasn't fully caught on as much. It is catching on. And we know, I know some Filipino podcasters and some, the word is getting out there, but it's spread a little bit faster among more of the English-speaking Western audience. So I was thinking more kind of initially like, expats, but also Asians who are aware of it within this region, and especially Australia, because, they always come to Bali on their holidays and they love Bali. But then, so many people that I've told about it in the US are, they want to come to Bali. So this is what's cool. And I didn't anticipate is this is uniting two communities or three communities or more that haven't ever met really, or maybe they have a little bit, but I feel like this will be a truly international event. I've got friends in Dubai who are planning to come. I just had a woman buy purchase from Singapore yesterday. So I'm super excited, that it will be international. As far as Bali, a lot of my friends here are already they've already fired. They've had successful corporate careers. They're building their own business just because they're very motivated people. But they don't necessarily need to know necessarily the how of FI. They're more interested in the why of FI. So yeah, I'm sure there will be some people who are living here long term who will come. And I plan to have a Balinese speaker as well who's doing incredible things on the island. So volunteering and contributing. And so I want to have some of those conversations around the why of FI. But yeah, this audience is like, this conference has grown to, I think, be a truly international conference or retreat. So I'm excited about that.
So digging into the why versus how, so is the conference mostly going to be centered around like finding your purpose, like maybe building a life of passion during your working years instead of waiting until you hit FI and then like building this quote unquote dream life afterward? Or just what's kind of the general gist of the conference? It sounds like it's not like, here's the best way to make more money with side hustles. This is the best way to like level up in your career and make more money. This is the best way to, save on these really intricate expenses from a tactical point of view. It sounds like it's more of the why, like why are we doing this? But hoping you can kind of expand on that.
Yes, it will be a balance of both, for sure. We won't get super into the weeds as far as US tax codes or Roth IRAs or that kind of thing. It could happen in a breakout session, but the main speakers will not be talking about the nuts and bolts of US investing. Because we've got an audience members from other places. But in the breakout sessions, there would be space for that for sure. But yes, we could, easily talk about side hustles, business building, because that is, even, real estate, there's some differences there. But I do believe that the principles are the same. Index fund investing, the principles are the same. The particular index fund that they invest in or the brokerage firm, that may be slightly different country by country. But, I feel like the how principles are very similar. So we will get into some of the how, and we will be talking about that. And I'm also very interested in the why. I feel like that is really what moves me personally is how can I give back more? What is my legacy? How do I really want to be intentional about my life? Because I feel like from my own perspective, I was so much focused on this scarcity deprivation mindset, like save. And then, really thinking about how can I loosen those reins around money mindset a little bit and give back more. And also my time as well, give back as a contribution of my time. So it'll be a big mix of both, but I am very interested in the why. So I want to have some speakers on that. And I'm still meeting with speakers and figuring those pieces out. So it partly will be, I'm choosing speakers to have a variety from different countries, different backgrounds, and different topics that they're going to talk about so that participants will get a variety when they're there.
And I think, one thing we can do with some of the time we have left, obviously at the end, we'll ask you for like some links and stuff where people can go like dive through it, but just kind of walking us through what this conference is going to look like how many or, retreat, like how many days are we talking? Like, are people going to be staying in the same place? Like, are there going to be other activities? Just give us the full rundown of what this event's going to look like.
Sure. I'm so excited. I love Bali. And I cannot wait to welcome people here. I have a history of always kind of organizing events and gathering people together and showing, I've just met friends in Thailand and kind of loved showcasing Thailand to them, but I can't wait to bring people to Bali and showcase Bali. So yeah, it's 5 days. I've limited it to 40 people. So it's going to be an intimate group. We're really going to get to know each other during that time. We're going to be, having probably 5 speakers, And we are going to be doing excursions as well. We're going to go see the rice paddies, do water temple blessings, have lunch with volcano views. We're going to go to some cultural dances in the evening. We're going to go to the monkey forest, so we'll be doing some excursions and events during the retreat, which will be really fun because Bali is a place that really captured my heart. Like, I didn't really feel like I had a home until I landed in this place and really saw what it was like to live here. I visited a lot as a tourist, but once I moved here, I really want to show that to listeners or to participants who come, what a wonderful island and magical place it is. So it's a mix of both of, financial education, but just a lot of community time. And what I found so valuable about these events is, my time sitting at the pool and, doing the fun activities that we did at Camp Fi, Justin, where we, walked around and we went down to Wimberley downtown, remember that? And went down to the river and we did, I enjoyed those conversations because I learned a lot from the speakers, but I learned just as much from the other participants. So I feel like participants are going to get a lot of value, not only from the speakers, but also from all the excursions that we do and connecting with the Balinese people and the Balinese culture and the other participants on the course as well. And then I've got some post-retreat activities, that people can also stay on for. So I recommend if people want to come, that they come for as long as they can, not just a week or 2 weeks, but a month. And some people are already, they've already signed up to do that. They've told me that I'm going to come for a month and really check it out and try on this geoarbitrage life. So after the retreat, some people have to fly back to their home country and they've got jobs or whatever. Some people will leave, but for those who can stay longer, we're going to go down to the beach. We're going to do some boat trips. We're going to have some excursions as well post retreat. So if people are flying, let me start over. If people are flying from further away, then they can feel like they're not just coming for the 5-day retreat, that there's all these other activities they can enjoy and they can sink in with a smaller group, in a deeper way after the retreat as well.
Is there a certain type of person that you're hoping to attract with this retreat? Is it those who are in the middle of their journey to FI, those who are just getting started, those who have already achieved FI? Is it for entrepreneurs and side hustlers only? Is it for those working in corporate jobs, those interested in geoarbitrage? Just kind of curious what mix of people are going to be there.
Great. I would love to have a variety of people. At this point, to be honest, transparent with you, I've sold 40% of tickets and most of the tickets have gone to Americans. And that's because they know me. So it's a little easier to sell to people And, but, I would love to create a very diverse audience, from all over the world. And for us to have those many conversations, well, what's it like to save, what's it like in Dubai and what's it like in Australia? And tell me about Singapore. And, so that would be ultimately what I would hope for. And I think, I've got some Australian podcasts lined up. And so I think that, this is going to happen. But it just takes a little bit more time. But yeah, I think people are going to be in all different places on their financial journey, just learning about FI to fully fired. Quite a few of the people who've bought tickets, they're already retired, so they're coming over. They're young and they want to travel, and so they're interested in that. But I know we're going to get people more regionally who may have just discovered FI, and people from the U.S. who are new to FI too. So people fly on miles, and once they get to Bali, I've tried to make the event very accessible for people so that it feels very affordable, and the value is definitely there. So I feel we'll get people all through their financial journey. And I really hope for diversity, What I'm really hoping for is people who are very supportive. I think I'm most interested in attracting a community that is really heart-based, that is really wanting to give to each other and learn from each other and support each other, which is what I found in the FI community in the U.S. and the events I've attended. People sitting down with their spreadsheets, with looking at my asset allocation, going through my numbers with me, just generously giving their time. And that's what I want to attract, people who are willing to talk and share and help each other. Like we rise together in this FI journey by supporting and motivating each other.
Well, I mean, it's so cool to hear like how much passion you have for both Bali as a region, as well as this topic, as well as bringing together that community and knowing like how much it did for you and wanting to share that with other people. Like anytime we can bring somebody on who just has like a passion about whatever it is they're doing is just so refreshing, because I know how good that feels to find that passion. So I really appreciate it. And for people who are wanting to kind of follow along, maybe go out and buy a ticket, hint, hint, because obviously you're only going to have 40 people. And I mean, we really hope that this isn't the only one, but you just never know. So like people who want to buy a ticket, want to find out more information about this, want to find out more information about you, like what are some of the places they can go and just see that info?
Sure. They can go to www.5freedomretreats.com. And they can also look me up on Facebook, add me as a friend. I'm not on social media a lot, but, definitely they can find on the Facebook event page. There's a lot of interest already there, a lot of discussion going on there. So they can kind of see other people that have already bought their tickets and they have clicked that they're going. So those are great places to go. And I can send you those links to put in the show notes. Yes. And I'm very open. Even on my contact page, people can book a 15-minute call with me if they want to ask, okay, I want to go to Bali. And then I'm thinking I want to go to Vietnam, or, they've got some other plans and they want to talk about travel with me. I've lived in the region a long time. I can, help them think about some of those pieces as well. So they really get the most out of it. If they use their miles to come over here, or they want to know, I'm a flight hacker. I've been a flight hacker for a long time, or also, booking with miles, those kind of strategic questions, I'm happy to talk with people. So they can go to the content page. Let me start over. They can go to the contact page of my website and they can book a call with me if they want to, if they want some help with this piece. But I would encourage them to buy their tickets soon, because I've really mostly let the U.S. audience know, but I'm spreading the word in the rest of the region over here. And I've already sold 40% of the tickets in 2 weeks. So I definitely know it's going to sell out. And I hope to repeat it again. But first, I just want to see how the first one goes. So I'm excited for it.
Awesome. Well, we're excited too, and we just want to thank you for coming on and sharing some of your time. Like you said, there's some events in Europe, there's some in South America. I have not heard of any fire events in Asia and Australia in that region. So I think you're doing an awesome thing. Can't wait to see how the first one turns out. And thank you again for coming on today, Amy.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Just want to acknowledge both of you guys for what you're doing in the world. It's so important to get, financial literacy out in the world. And I really appreciate your content. I've loved listening to your podcast. So thank you very much for your contribution.